What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Mind of Marsal podcast. This is episode number 116. I am your host, Armando Marsal. You could find all of my work over at fantasyguru.com. Follow me on the Twitter machine at Armando_Marsal, as well as on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Mind of Marsal. As usual, folks, before jumping into it, I just want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. I greatly appreciate you all. Remember, if you're enjoying the podcast, enjoying the content, please make sure you follow, rate, review, like the podcast wherever it is you're consuming it. Anything you want me to discuss on this podcast, please email that to mindofmarsal@gmail.com. I'll make sure to get that answered, talk about it on the podcast, whatever it is. And you can also find the show now, the podcast that you're listening to right now on YouTube at Mind of Marsal there. So make sure you're following the channel, make sure you're subscribing there and watching these podcast on video as well. I am pumped for today's episode because I got a special guest on. He's a friend of the podcast. He's a friend of mine. He's been a mentor of mine for a larger portion of my time in the fantasy sports industry. He's a brilliant fantasy football analyst. He's an exceptional human being. He is a wise man. He is the great Bob Harris. Bob, how's it going, sir?
It's going good. We'll see about the brilliant. 2 weeks in, I'm about week one's always weird, right, Armando? And I feel like even though we got some, or at least I got some normalization on a lot of the guys I was, pitching hard in week two. I've been doing this long enough to realize nothing is a permanent condition in this game, and we'll see how it goes.
It is. It's fun. Like the first 2 weeks, I think it is fun. I think there's a lot of panic. I think there's a lot of chaos, right? Like after week two, you start questioning your decision making on draft. You start asking yourself, did I make the right decision? But we've like you said, we've been in this for a pretty long time. I know that this is part of the process. I know there's slow starts. It's no time to panic. And that was one of the things before you and I are gonna pretty much we're gonna give our takeaways from week two. We're gonna look at some of these injuries. We're gonna look ahead at week three and some waiver wire selections. But I really wanted to talk to you about that because I see a lot of panic already, right? Like I'm seeing people trying to sell off players that are, kind of off to slow starts and things like that. Are you at the point, Bob, where if you're 0 and 2 and a couple of your players are off to a slow, are you panicking already? Are you off, or are you just saying, look, this is part of football, this is how it is? Where are you at with that, Bob? Because I do think that's interesting.
Or playing a game based on a sport that's built on variance and unexpected outcomes, so much so that they designed the football as an oblong spheroid so it would bounce funny ways to make it even tougher. So, like this is, I mean, and it's unnerving, and part of it is the disappointment that comes from, especially for us in the business, we've been spending an entire offseason telling ourselves happy stories about players and why they're going to outperform expectations or return value on our investment. And when you get that initial shock of, oh no, it already isn't going how I thought, there are big concerns, right? But I think anyone who's been playing for a little while knows that September is the new August. It takes a little time for things to come together. You try and get as many wins as you can. You almost have to play your investments, right? You're not going to sit there and play guys you drafted in round 10 over guys you drafted in round one. And that doesn't mean guys in round 10 aren't going to outperform some of the guys you drafted in round one. It's the nature of the beast, and sorting that out. I think the people who are quicker to process some of these things do fare better, like the people who are able to figure out what's meaningful and what's a mirage, probably fare a little better. But anyone pretending anything that happened week one, week two, week three is our permanent conditions are fooling themselves. This is all, it's just like being right or wrong. You're going to be right and wrong, both on players on players you were convicted on over the course of a season from week to week. So it's just something, it's part of the fun of the game for me. And trying to control the emotions. That's another part of it that I find fun too. So that's the big thing, is controlling your emotions. I mean, how many questions do we get, Armando, during the course of a week that are basically, am I crazy too? I mean, that's almost every question you get when you listen to the question. I want to play this guy or that guy. Would it be crazy to do this? I mean, in a week one and two, a lot of times the answer is yes. Later in the year, there's a little more open to discussion, but early in the year, you kind of follow along your investments. You try and keep it in check the best you can. You try not to outsmart yourself, and get some wins so you head into October in good shape.
Yeah, I think if this question starts, am I crazy too? I think the answer to that is maybe yes, right? Like maybe you are a little crazy to do so. I get it, right? Like I do understand. And sometimes my answer is, look, I totally understand. I don't look at it that way. I'm not going to do that. But I'm also not going to talk anyone off a ledge if they really truly feel, a way about a player. I think we have to understand. I talked about this on episode 114 as well with Rich Mileto. And I think what we have to understand, especially in today's day and age, right? The football's changed. Like players aren't playing the preseason. It takes a little bit of time. I know this is their profession. I know this is what they do for a living. But if you come back from a vacation, it takes you a little bit of time to get going, right? And this is a high speed, high impact sport where it's going to take a little time for some of these players to get into the groove of things, especially those that don't get a ton of reps in the preseason. So I'm not panicking either, Bob. I'm kind of taking the wait and see approach with some of these players, especially those high conviction plays, right? Like those high conviction plays that we all had, like you gotta stick to your guns here for a little bit. And that's kind of what I'm doing here as well. I'm not panicking. I'm not trading. I'm not making a fire sale. And I'm not reacting. That's the big thing. Don't react to 1 or 2 weeks of football. Make sure that you trust that process that you had the entire offseason, right? Like that's what counts. And hopefully, these plays come into fruition. That's my message as well. I'm kind of echoing what you're saying there. But yeah, I think we're both in the same page of no need to panic, even if they're players in slow starts. Bob, this was a pretty, week one, I think we avoided a lot of injuries, a lot of serious injuries, and not so much the case in week two. And we're going to have a lot of quarterback injuries this week, and we're going to talk about those. So Joe Burrow suffered a toe injury. He's expected to be out at least 3 months. Jake Browning is the next man up there. I'm pretty sure, like I've seen reports, I've seen rumors of, maybe the Bengals make a play up that someone like Jameis Winston. That would be absolutely fun for fantasy managers. I don't know if they're going to do such thing, Bob, but where are you at with Joe Burrow, the injury, and then what are you doing here with this offense?
Well, the numbers have not been historically good. Pat Doherty from Roto World had used the RotoViz splits tools to kind of sort out what's going on with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins with and without Joe Burrow. And it's like, for Chase, it's 20.7 points per game with Burrow as his quarterback, and it's 11 points per game without. And for Higgins, it's similar. It's 50. It's not as big a gap. It's 15 and 11. So, like, you're probably still playing both those guys. One becomes more of a, like are you not playing Chase? I mean, that upside, his upside is still there. The good news is, and I mean, most of the sample size, by the way, for all that comes from 2023 with Jake Browning. So we have a pretty good one-to-one understanding what's going on. I mean, I don't know that Jake Browning is improving greatly over the course of the last couple of years, but one thing he is not unwilling to put the ball up in the air and throw it into tight windows and try to make plays. So I mean, on the scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being an incredible disaster, this is probably maybe a 6 or 7 because you still have really good players on your roster. And maybe in the case of Higgins, there are other guys you have to widen out your options and look at some other players that maybe can produce to that level. But like, I don't know. I'm probably still playing both these guys and seeing how it goes against the Minnesota Vikings this week. And we'll let it play out from there. We'll see. Like the Jameis Winston talk, it feels like Jameis Winston can do great things for about 5 games at a time.
Yeah.
At least for, that's the problem. Great things for us as fantasy investors. He's not doing great things for the teams that he's playing for, or he would obviously still be a starter. So that's the issue with him.
Oh yeah, he's not going to go and win the Bengals their division by any means, but he's going to give Chase about 20 targets per game because he's throwing the ball 50 times. The,
Sure.
the the thing with Chase is I agree with you. I think you're going to start him pretty much every week simply out of volume, right? I think the Bengals are a bad enough defense here where they're going to be chasing points often. So regardless of who's under center, I think there's going to be a lot of passing volume. The problem is there's not going to be that high in production as often as
Right.
you're used to seeing it, and that's kind of if you're a Chase
Right.
owner at this moment, that's what you have to think about, right? So that yeah, I agree with you. I
And that
think
one that 101 is the sunk cost now. You just have to live with it and realize that's how it goes, just like McCaffrey investors did last year
correct.
and people do across the board many years, Jonathan Taylor. But in this case, I mean, it's not all is not lost. You still have someone who's going to be there scoring points for you.
Correct. Correct. I think that's a great way to view it there. A couple other quarterbacks. So Jaden Daniels sprained ankle. Justin Fields has a concussion. JJ McCarthy high ankle sprain there. He's expected to miss about 2 to 4 weeks. These are tricky injuries, Bob. Like that could be 2 to 4 weeks. That could be 3 to 6 weeks. That could, these things linger. Any major concerns here for these quarterbacks?
Well, I think for Fields, this so it seems probably like a 1 week deal. I mean, obviously, no, never good to concussions can be you know the league is watching closely. I think that's the danger, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, but they do. They pay a lot of attention to this, and so next big hit he takes, they're going to be watching closely. The spotters will be doing all that. I think for our purposes, like we were playing Justin Fields for one reason because he runs the ball like crazy during his time in Chicago. We saw him as a starter there. I think he had 15 out of 28 starts for top 10 fantasy performances, and so far the sample size in New York is pretty good when he's healthy. So we're going to keep playing him this week. Tyrod Taylor, if Tyrod Taylor plays, I don't think he can keep you from playing Garrett Wilson. The target shares have been ginormous, right? And I don't know that the funnel changes. Maybe to some degrees. The Wilson 43 and 38% target shares over the first 2 weeks. So I'm playing the volume with slightly lower expectations, I guess. And Brees Hall has already looked a little better than I expected, and then not as much as I hoped after the first week of greatness. So we'll see. I mean, I think people who drafted him are still playing him. I feel like players you drafted through your first 3 rounds, you're probably sticking with a little longer. You get in that fourth and fifth round, you're starting to explore your options. But I think that's going to be an issue for them. For Jaden Daniels, was it his knee or his ankle?
I thought I had ankle, but it could have. I thought I had ankle here. I could.
I don't
Let me see.
know. Sprained knee is what
Oh,
Dan
it's
Quinn
me.
says.
Okay.
So I'm hoping, you know, they say it's minor. Marcus Mariota, has a lot of experience. I think that's worthwhile. Maybe we finally get our chance to see our guy Bill, the great
Yes.
Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, and get a significant workload. Austin Eckler out as well with the torn Achilles, so his season is over. I think they added some practice squad, Chase Edmonds or
Yeah.
whatever, and we'll see if they do something else. But I think this will be our first chance to see Krosky Merritt, a guy who had all the buzz in the world. I mean, the reporting couldn't be more glowing. I've talked to many of those people who cover it, Ben Standig and John Keim, and they seem pretty sold on him. So we'll see. I think for the receiving core, like I've been super impressed with Debo Samuel. He's in shape, looks fast, has the versatile role. Seems like that'll be persistent. Terry McLaurin has kind of sucked. JJ Zach Reason pointed out, that this so far it's 4.7 and 9.8 PPR points. Last year he started with 3.7 and 8.2, so no need to pull the panic button there. And Zach Ertz seems like a solid play. I mean, I don't want to paint this as a positive because it's not for the overall offense. Marcus Mariota is not as good as Jaden Daniels, but he is an experienced replacement, and we can go with that. And for McCarthy, it might be a favor. We have one
Yeah.
good quarter and seven horrible quarters, and I don't know that it's all his fault. The offensive line did nothing. It was already started out without Christian Darrisaw, lost another piece. He's been sacked a ton. The Falcons over the 2 games, right? So, I mean, and like I don't want to excuse totally like a bad performance against Atlanta, but he had just had a child. He was away from practice for a week. He's a young player. I think over the course of time, he'll be perfectly fine. I have a lot of trust in Kevin O'Connell's abilities, and he's the guy who's played a major role in deciding who that quarterback was going to be. So, but in the meanwhile, I'm not pulling Justin Jefferson's quarterback proof card, but it's been wide receiver 20 and 30-ish finishes, right? How's it going to get 20 and 34?
Yeah.
So it's not been good, right? So I mean, obviously a little concerned. Jordan Addison will be back after week 3, and we'll see what goes on there if that helps everyone a little bit. But TJ Hawkins's value seems to be taking a huge hit with McCarthy, and that's going to be a problem. So there needs to be a lot of improvement there. I don't know that Carson Wentz. I mean, we've seen Carson Wentz play at a super high level, and I can't. I'm very old and I can't remember when it was. It was a long time ago. No, like the last 2 games, last 2 times he's played like in irrelevant week 18s with a bunch of backups. So this will be his first game for a number of years with with a full starting cast and a good coach and an offense that he kind of knows, and probably with a running back who's going to be very busy in Jordan Mason. With Aaron Jones maybe missing with time with a hamstring injury, we can think back to Jordan Mason's time in San Francisco, where for at least a couple weeks when he got going. He was a top 10 running back and carried a massive workload. So hoping for all that for him and think that might get him through. Weird schedule coming up too. They have two games overseas in weeks 4 and 5 in Ireland and England. So that adds a layer of intrigue to the whole thing.
Yeah, I think McCarthy will benefit from this. It hasn't been pretty, right? And I agree with you. I have high expectations for this young man. I think O'Connell is a brilliant coach. Like I feel like he's been able to work wonders with quarterbacks, and the fact that they were willing to part ways with Sam Darnold and hang around with McCarthy here, that obviously speaks volumes of where at with this young man. It's been a rough start. He's been under a ton of pressure, like you mentioned. Like you're watching these games, and it's just pressure after pressure after pressure after pressure. And it's just like he doesn't really have much time in a lot of these plays here. So that's been an issue there for them. I don't think that Wentz is, given how McCarthy's playing right now, I don't think Wentz is at all a downgrade, right? I feel like at worst it's a
Right.
lather moves, right, for this team. So that's worst case scenario. So I'm still going to be playing the likes of Justin Jefferson. I'm still going to keep rolling with Hawkinson. He was a tight end I drafted as a tight end one, and I know it has not been great. I've received some questions about him and what am I going to do. I'm still going to keep rolling him out there. Like the options out waivers right now might be more appealing given some of the early starts for some of these players, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I think it's here to stay consistently, at least for the long haul. So I'm going to keep rolling out with Hawkinson, see how this plays out there. You mentioned Aaron Jones. He's expected to miss week 3, man. And I think this is just wheels up for Jordan Mason. He's looked phenomenal, by the way. Like
Yep.
he's looked like their best runner there in Minnesota, by the way. I mean, he's running with power. He's breaking through tackles. Like he's just done a phenomenal job there. And I view him as a must start this week, especially if Jones is out, because I do think he's going to handle the majority of the workload there and see the full workload really for the Vikings backfield there. So and it's a great matchup, right? It's a phenomenal matchup against
Yeah.
a bad Bengals defense.
First 2 weeks last year with Christian McCaffrey suddenly out, Mason was running back 7,
Yeah.
averaged 19 points per game, almost 20 points per game. The big thing is he's top to 80% snap share. We know the Vikings are willing to give their top running back that snap share because we saw it with Aaron Jones last year, so all the pieces are in place.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, I've been asked. Someone asked me, "Oh, he's available on waivers? Do I add him?" Like, yes.
Yes.
If he's out there in your waiver wire, go add him. I mean, I'd be stunned if he's out there in most leagues, but if he is, you go out there. The other injury, Bob, and this one is not that it occurred this weekend, but we know Brian Thomas is dealing with it's a wrist injury, right? That he was kind of
Right.
playing through. Um, there appears to be not many concerns, but it is, an injury that's out there. Is this something that you're concerned about? I know you talk a lot to Mr. Mike Dempsey. He's from there, from that Jacksonville area. Is this a concern for you guys for Brian Thomas?
I think it's a concern in Jacksonville. If you read the local reporting and Liam Cohen talking about how he's going to have a talk with him and discuss the situation. They're not sure but he had some drops. There was a lot of talk in the local media there about business decisions being made. I think, for me, from a fantasy perspective, he's seen target shares of 24 and 29%. And we haven't got the points we wanted. Haven't hit double digit points, but I'm playing that target share and hoping to get course correction. I mean, I think a lot of times for me the answer is going to be we'll follow the volume. I mean, no points happen without opportunities, and we can think all these guys who are like possibilities or we have high expectations for, who seem like the flavor of the moment. That's all great. Devontae Walker, I want to I want to get him in the game. He's got multiple touchdowns. Well, he has 3 catches in his career, all touchdowns. It's good, right? But it's not something I want to play every week. So yeah, that's it. I'm playing that workload, and I'm hoping he course corrects. We've seen him play very good. Hoping that wasn't a mirage last year. If it was a very lengthy one. I'm guessing he gets things figured out. But remember, the bulk of his success last year came with the great Mac Jones as his quarterback, right? So the chemistry with Trevor Lawrence may still be a work in progress and something that they have to get together on. And I'm willing to wait it out. But again, it's a lot of draft capital for a guy who has scored fewer than 20 fantasy points over the first 2 weeks.
The great Mac Jones had a good game last week
Yeah,
against
a really
the
good
Saints,
game.
right? Like, he had a
A
pretty
really
good
good game.
game. I'm glad you said that, Bob, by the way, because I was going to follow up when you were talking. I was going to follow up, and you just answered the question without me having to ask it. So that's like chasing volume, right? We don't. I've been told, oh well, he's not producing. That's fine. Give me 20 touches. I'll take the 20 touches. Eventually, the production will come for these good players, right? Like especially when you're talking about uber talented players. Like,
Well,
go ahead.
well, it won't come without it,
It
right?
can't.
I mean,
Can't.
that's for
Correct.
sure it won't come without it. So that's why it's the first layer for me is the first thing I'm looking for are what are the opportunities. And so even players that disappoint me, I'm sure we'll get to the Seahawks and Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet situation, and we'll see how it plays out. But I mean, you know, is the guy that's disappointing me still getting some chances? I mean, there's cases where you're not getting the desired volume, but you're getting some volume, and then you have some tougher decisions. But when it's all the volume, it's a little easier call to stick with the player and say, okay, I'm giving this guy a chance to be the thing that I saw he was over the course of a season last year. That I've analyzed and feel like he has a good position. He's in a good position to do more. I'm going to give that guy a little more time.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like I couldn't agree more. Like for me, I talk about this every single time. Just chase the volume. It's not always going to work out, right? It's not, but you at least have something to stand on. Like it's like, all right, well, the opportunities were there, the production, the efficiency was just not, and that's okay. It's going to happen. But I'm a volume chase man. I'm the same way, so couldn't agree more with you. All right, let's dive into some takeaways from this weekend. And I didn't catch the Houston Tampa Bay game. I was at my son's baseball game, but I did catch the Chargers Raiders game later in the evening. And
Mm. Mm.
are the Chargers for real? I
Yeah.
don't know, man. Like I think they are, and I like what I'm seeing from Justin Herbert. I know he made some bad throws towards the end of this game or whatnot, but I think overall, I like what I'm seeing from this Chargers
So
team.
I was talking with Dempsey about this going into the game last night. Like we, as fantasy investors, one of the most sure things in the world have been the reliance of Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh on the rushing attack. And, that's the expectation. You have one good, one usable fantasy receiver during their years together, and mostly in Greg Roman's entire career as a coordinator. Even in years where they had good passing seasons, it was like one guy you could count on. And here we are having this whole smorgasbord of wide receivers suddenly at our command. And the running backs we expected to be, the dominant forces there. Not yet there, but maybe they will be. But also, here's the possibility. Here's a possibility. Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh have been around football for many, many years. And they're watching films, they're going, wow, this Justin Herbert. Like if they saw the Justin Herbert, let's say you and I watched against Kansas City in week one, that was a very good quarterback. Looked like could be the best, arguably as good as any quarterback in football. Well, maybe they're smart enough to realize, wow, we better leverage our best player, the best player on our team, and get a little more out of him. So maybe the arrival of Keenan Allen, foreshadowed that a little bit, or maybe it should have made us realize that, wow, they got a lot of receivers all of a sudden. What the heck? What are they going to do with all that? Oh, maybe use it. So we'll see. Again, it's early, and I don't want to go overboard on this. But the key for me was in the first week. When they were trying to win that game, they didn't go to the run. They went to the quarterback. They leaned into Herbert and let him do his thing. And so I think it's a very interesting situation to watch and see how it plays out. And I'm not sure we're going to get the things we expected, which was Marion Hampton and Najee Harris all day, endlessly. I mean, we're going to get some of that, but I don't know if it's going to be as much as we thought.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm still optimistic about Hampton, right? Like
Sure.
I'm not here saying, "Oh my God, it's a bust," but I think this offense you're going to see a different offense this year that we anticipated at least, right? Because you have the weapons and the tools, so long as they stay healthy, right? Because you do have veterans
Correct.
there. Allen has missed time. McConkey, played dinged up less. So, but they do have a supporting cast. Like you mentioned, you start looking. They have Allen, you have McConkey, you have Harris, you have Johnston. Like there's a lot of pieces here in the passing game, so I agree with you. I think this is here to stay, and I'm very excited because I think this is the first season that Justin Herbert has a second year, the second year with the same coordinator, right? Like this is throughout his
Right.
career, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is that first time that he has the same offensive coordinator for the second year in a row, if I'm not mistaken. So that is a plus for him there. Um, you mentioned the Seahawks. Let's talk about that, right? Because in week one, Charbonnet was the one that scored the touchdown. Kenneth Walker just kind of was not there. Then in week two, it's Kenneth Walker who has the big game, but Charbonnet still played more snaps. All right. And where do you stand with this backfield? Because I was very bullish on Ken Walker going into the season. full transparency, I like him a
Same.
lot. I still like him. I'm still okay.
Same.
But I think I've come to the realization that just like the coaches in Los Angeles are wise, I think the coaches in Seattle are wise enough to understand they have two really good running backs here, and they're capable of mixing and matching both of them here. I also think that, Ken Walker was dealing with an injury heading into the season. I think that plays a role into how they're utilizing him early in the season, having an asset like Charbonnet. So I'm not overly concerned, but I also think that the Walker having the 16 to 18 consistent opportunities on a week-to-week basis might not happen so long as everyone's healthy in his backfield. Where are you at with this backfield, Bob?
So I was Team Walker, and so I'll tell you why, right? Like, so we start paying attention to these things early in the year. Well, I started paying attention when Clint Kubiak was hired, away from previously with the 49er or with the Saints, and then the 49ers before that. Had a great season for Alvin Kamara investors in that offense, and he comes and the very first press conference in February, he said we're going to put the ball in our best player's hands, and our best player is Kenneth Walker. And he continued to say things like that. And I think the people in Seattle mostly agree with that. But that Ken Walker has, you know, problems. So he's got to stay on the field. Availability isn't his best ability, or hasn't been. And also, he's a bit of a home run hitter. I think we saw a little bit of that in week one, where he's trying to cut back, where maybe he should just hit the hole the way the offense is designed. And Zach Charbonnet did that. Also in week one, more of his runs were up the middle, and Charbonnet got more on the edge, and it was more effective on the edge. This week it was similar, but it was more effective up the middle, and Walker took advantage of it and used his playmaking ability. But here's the key. Here's the thing. I talked to Bob Condotta of the Seattle Times before the game on Sunday, and I was asking him obviously about this situation, and he made a really good point. He said, "Well, they don't really care. They just want to run the ball effectively." Right? Like, so we're at the point now where it's a hot hand situation, and these can be difficult, but both guys are going to get a workload. If Kenneth Walker is the talent that you and I thought, or that Clint Kubiak has suggested, clearly has the speed and the playmaking ability. Charbonnet is not chopped liver. I'm not downplaying him, but I think if Kenneth Walker is right, he's the ideal fit for this offense, and a guy that can get a lot done. But now it's on him. He's there. He's got to get it done. So hopefully, we saw last year in the games he played, he finished as running back 12 on a points per game basis. He has running back one upside if he can stay on the field. We'll see if he can do that. I'm hoping for the best. I didn't overpay to find out either. I feel like a fourth round price tag that you were getting him for this summer is still reasonable for the perceived upside. I hope it works out. I'm not sure it will, but last week was obviously better than week one.
Yeah. And full disclosure, I mean, they have identical opportunities to start the season right now after 2 weeks. It's 27 and 27. Charbonnet has played, I think, 66 snaps. Ken Walker has played 44 snaps. So the snap share is a little bit different, but the opportunities are equal here between the two. So I'm not, if you invested in Walker, I would not be concerned because, like you mentioned, you weren't paying high draft capital for Walker here. So for me, this is a situation where I think it could vary from week to week. But I think they're both going to be involved. And I agree with you 100%. Walker is the guy that should be the every down back here. But Charbonnet is going to be very involved. Unfortunately, that's kind of what it is here. I want to talk about a slow. Oh, you had something to say about that?
I was just gonna say, last year when they were both available, I mean, it was even last year, it was way more Walker than Charbonnet. I think the games
Yeah.
they played together. I'm just looking. I think I have the numbers here. Yeah, 6 game stretch. Walker missed 6 games last year. In 11 games together, Walker had 68% of the carries, 14% of the targets, compared to Charbonnet's 19% and 8%. So I mean, that's how it went last year. So that was part of the equation going into this year. Also, this is a new year. It's a new coaching, new offensive staff. So we'll see. They profess their love of Walker. Hopefully, he can make good on that. And that's I think, I don't know if I have had more calls on two players, and many people have both of them. And if you have both of them, because it was, if you're willing to pay that insurance premium for Zach Charbonnet, he's a great insurance policy, but he may end up being the piece, and Walker may end up being the way too expensive insurance policy. We'll just have to find out.
Yeah, and I think that those numbers are I think we can hit those numbers this year, like a 60, what you said, 68 kind of
Yeah.
dude. I think you can hit those numbers, like a 70-30 share, 65-35 split. I think that's very feasible. But like you mentioned, Walker has to be 100% right for that to happen and for it to happen consistently. And this is why, by the way, this is why you said to be, a lot of people have both hats. Most people started Walker in week one. I would say a lot of people reacted to that week one and pivoted. And this is why you stick to your
Yeah,
guns. Like this
yeah,
is precisely a great example of why you stick to your guns in these moments, right?
correct.
Because of that. Because it just do not base it off 1 week there. Because now you probably missed on both weeks if you did do that. You
Right.
definitely not probably you definitely missed both weeks on the production of this backfield. I want to talk about another player who's been struggling, Bob, that I've gotten a lot of questions about, and that's AJ Brown. He had one target in week one. It wasn't great, but look, he had a 36.3% target share this past weekend. I'm okay with the production. I mean, I'm not okay with the production, but I'm okay with what I saw this week as far as the opportunities. He made a nice one-handed catch there. That I mean, the ball was not throwing great. He caught it. I thought it was a great catch. I'm not concerned here. Like for me, it's 2 weeks. I'm still going to roll him out. Am I excited about what I've seen so far? No. Am I, going out there and looking to go buy 100 shares of AJ Brown? I might if the price is right, but I'm not going to sell Brown because number one, when you're selling these kind of players that started off very slow, you're not going to get full value for a lot of these players. And number two, you really haven't seen it through. So I view him as a hold. I'm not overly concerned, but what say you, Bob?
Uh, I will say that here's what I know for sure. AJ Brown is one of the best, arguably the best five receivers in the NFL. And I think any given week he can play up to that. But there's a problem for him. And there's a problem for Devontae Smith, and it's passing volume. Jalen Hurts threw 104 fewer passes in 2024 than in 2023, and 99 fewer than in 2022, despite playing the same number of games. In 2024, Hurts attempted 30 plus passes in just 5 games, compared to 8 the year before, or in 22. The Eagles went 10-1 in the 11 games where he attempted fewer than 30 passes. There's a reason for that. It's called Saquon Barkley. So I mean, like, this is going to be a run heavy team, and we saw in the week one, there were 19 completions. I mean, that doesn't leave you a lot of room for for the volume that I like to talk about. So I'm gonna just say when I got to the second round of drafts and I was having the AJ Brown, Lad McConkey decision, it was almost always a running back. That was my answer, right? Because I had concerns about this volume. Again, I don't think nothing. AJ Brown is fantastic, and I think what he said, like week one, there was a lot of concern. I know our friend Joe Dolan at Fantasy Points put out that tweet that he won 0 routes. The Fantasy Points data showed that's not good. I often wonder about players who miss a lot of time in August. They take a little time, and some of them, except Quinshon Judkins, he doesn't need any practice time apparently. But a lot of players, you see that slow start. We've seen it with Terry McLaurin. I mean, we see it every year, right? And so I thought maybe that was some of it. Maybe the hamstring was still an issue. Brown sat down with Jordan Schultz and said, "That's all nonsense. You're all reading too much into it. It was, he was zoned out. There, the zone coverage was a problem that game, et cetera, et cetera." And he may be right, but whatever the case, I would need him to have more opportunities to return the value where you had to draft him at. And until I see a significant change in this offense, I don't know that he's going to get the volume I want on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think that's the big concern with him, right? Like I think there is going to be volatility with his production. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to have that high-end production.
Yes.
But it's not going to come on a weekly basis, I think. And I think if you invested in him, you understood that, right? Because I think that's been kind of his
Or if you
MO.
didn't.
Or if you did it, you knew exactly what was going on. Um, Jackson Smith and Jigba is embracing a new role, Bob. He's no longer the slot receiver there in Seattle. He's lining up out wide much more, and it's benefiting him. Over 100 receiving yards in each of his first 2 games. Plenty of volume there. Um, is that here to stay? I think it is. I think I
Yeah.
think we knew this going into the season, right? Like it was going to be a target hog, and whenever we expect them to run the football, but whenever they pass the ball, I think it was pretty obvious. Jackson Smith and Jigba. Um, I think it's here to stay, Bob. Right? This
Yeah,
is not going
he's
anywhere.
picked up right where he left off. He's wide receiver 10 over the first few games, averaging nearly 20 points a game. Sam Darnold doesn't look a lot of different ways. I saw you last week, Cooper Cup. It'll be okay, I'm sure. But I know you're there. But also I know Jackson Smith and Jigba is there for sure. I think this is going to be a robust role, and I think people who drafted him where they drafted where they got him are going to be very happy they landed him.
I want to talk about Daniel Jones. There's a lot of excitement around the industry
Sure.
about Daniel Jones, and I'll be honest. I've always been a fan. I understand that, from a football perspective, he's never lived up to that expectation. There's been a lot of knock on him. I've always enjoyed him from a fantasy football standpoint because he's kind of that sneaky rushing upside. Like he does a little bit of these things where he produces, right? And I think for the first time, he's finally in a good situation, right? A good offensive line, a coach that obviously believes in him, good supporting cast, a very good run game. And he never had all of that at once in New York. And he's playing really good football. To be honest, I'm going to full disclosure, transparency. After he played in Miami, I was like, all right, guys, temper expectations week two. It's Denver. Denver's a good defense. Well, Daniel Jones did phenomenal in week two. And I mean, I think this is for real. I don't think this is a fluke, Bob. I think he's comfortable in this offense. There's been a lot of questions of do you go out there and get him on waivers? And in a super flex and two quarterback league, I think that's a no-brainer if he's still out there. He shouldn't be out there, but if he is, this is a no-brainer. But in this single quarterback league, I think there's a valid question to be asked, especially with all of these injuries, if Daniel Jones should be that, guy you lean on here. Where do you stand with Daniel Jones after 2 weeks of football?
Well, I stand on him being the quarterback two. And I mean, like, so I guess, like, again, meaningful or mirage. Week one, you could say he played the Miami Dolphins. They're objectively not good at stopping quarterbacks. Drake May added to that last week, but then he takes on the Denver Broncos, and dang, it was pretty good. So I guess what you're looking at for Daniel Jones is like the situation he's in seems like it's pretty fortuitous for him, right? Like you're playing with Jonathan Taylor, Shane Steichen is leaning into that, leaning into keeping a balanced approach. But like so, week one carves up a substandard offense. Week two, is super effective playing against the Broncos. He looks comfortable. He's not making mistakes. I like all that. The 360 yards and the touchdown, or the touchdown to Jonathan Taylor. So I just like he's in a good spot. And I think if you're out there and you have a need for a quarterback, you could probably do worse than that. He's doing all the things, maybe not the super high end playmaking that we all hoped Anthony Richardson would do in this offense, but he's just doing it at a consistently higher level without the horrible mistakes, and seems to be a little better passer along the way. So if they can maintain the same balance, Jones is going to be consistent and probably more effective than anybody expected during draft season, and somebody you could probably play any given week. And plus, the added benefit is this is playing in the AFC South, where not every defense is great.
That is correct. That is correct right there. So Matt Harmon tweeted something out on Sunday, and I thought it was an interesting stat. And so Daniel Jones was blitzed on a career high 71.1% of his dropbacks, and he went 16 of 25 in those dropbacks, 265 yards and a touchdown. That was impressive. Like for me, that's an impressive stat. Is that sustainable? Is that, going to be for the entirety of the season? I don't think so, but I thought it was an interesting stat. And after he's gotten a lot of shit throughout his career. So I'm just happy that he's gotten off to a good start. I like this situation. This is an offense that I was very in on. Knowing once we knew he was going to be under center, it kind of changed the dynamics for me here. So I'm interested. And if, like you said, if you need quarterback help, I think you could do worse than Daniel Jones. Speaking of quarterbacks here, Drake May, um, off to a kind of start in week one, looked a little bit better last week against Miami. Like you said, look, you're being nice. Miami, they're not. That defense is not good. That secondary is not good, Bob. I live here. I'm in Miami. I'm seeing it firsthand. Not a good secondary here. But some of the things that for me looked good for me, like he looked like he was patient in the pocket, right? One of his long completions came when he was under pressure. He had to step in the pocket, and he made a great throw. He went through his progressions, went through his read. Like he played a really good football game. And I like what I saw from Drake May. I've gotten a lot of questions. May's available in all these leagues. He's another one that if he's out there and you need help at quarterback, I'm going out there and getting myself through 2 weeks and even going back to this week. What are your thoughts on Drake May here going forward and what you've seen so far?
Well, I think he's another one who we had some expectations for, or people certainly had expectations for, and it seems like the things are coming around a little bit. Granted, maybe you needed a good matchup to get the ball rolling, but he's got a good supporting cast. Josh McDaniels, whatever you think of him, knows how to put together an NFL offense. So I think it'll be fine. I thought we'll see what happens with guys like Travion Henderson, who's been a bit of a disappointment. It seems like he's not in a good spot to return value, but some other pieces have risen up, say Quinshon Judkins, who actually started rising up late last season. He had top 10, I want to say, two top 20 performances, one top 10 performance over the final 3 weeks last year. Before he came on strong this week, only four wide receivers in the NFL had more yards in the 4 games prior to last week than Quinshon Judkins, and it was guys like Drake London and Ricky Pearsall, Lad McConkey, some hot risers. So he's got the pieces. Hunter Henry's a good piece, I think, for him as well. I have a lot of optimism. The number that everyone should remember is like over the course of last season, the games he started, he averaged more yards rushing per game than Josh Allen did. So he has some rushing equity, and that's something we're looking for. So I'm still hopeful for him. And maybe this team has a little ways to go to get it all together, though.
You mentioned Henderson. Obviously, we know Stevenson coming off a big game there. How do you see this backfield shaping out? Like, because I think there was a lot of people after week one willing to just cut bait with Stevenson, saying, "Oh, well, it's going to be Henderson." I saw a lot of people dropping him. I saw when you look at the ownership numbers, it kind of fell for Stevenson here. But now coming off a big week, the way I view this, Bob, and maybe you see it differently. The way I view this is they're going to continue to lean on Stevenson early in the early parts of the season. I do eventually think Henderson's going to become that guy. But this is a committee, and this is the way I'm viewing it. I think when you're looking at long-term upside, you want Henderson, right? But I think you're not going to be able to trust them on a week-to-week basis right now. I think there's going to be some big moments, but I also think there's going to be some mediocre performances as well. So that if you're starting him, that's kind of the way you have to approach Henderson. But maybe I'm wrong here. How do you see this playing out, though, Bob?
No, I think you're correct. I felt like he was a pretty expensive buy this
Yeah.
this year, so I don't have a lot of shares. I'm old and mean and cheap, and I'm not looking to just throw away capital. And I like part of the problem for me is I'm not a draftnik type. I'm not a college football watcher, so I don't have the expectations that a lot of people had associated with Henderson. Like I'm out there studying the things and reading what everyone's saying, so I know what's there. I just haven't seen it, and lived it, so it's not burnt into my psyche there. And so I was way more interested, early in the draft here in Quinshon Judkins because it seemed like he was in a better get a better opportunity in Cleveland than Henderson was going to get in New England. And the Stevenson thing is one of the issues. I mean, and I talked to Tom King from the Nashville Telegraph a while back, and he said, "Man, you guys don't overlook Steve Stevenson." This was like at the end of August. He came in, he looks like a different person. Almost didn't recognize him when he reported to camp. He's lost weight. He's looking good. I talked to Matt Waldman about him, and he reminds me, that he's a way better receiver. He was a way better receiver coming out of college than people gave him credit for. We maybe saw a little taste of that, in this game. So yeah, he's not. You're right. He's not going away, and that's going to be a problem for Henderson investors.
Yeah, I think so. I think I think there's going to be very game script, very game, dependent here. And I think they both have fantasy value. Like I don't view Stevenson as now, someone that's just collecting dust. I think he's going to have a role. And look, if you want to sell him high, sure. I've been asked, do I sell him high? Sure. But I think there's going to be moments like this multiple times throughout the year. Like I really do when it
Yeah.
comes to Stevenson. Um, the Bears. Let's talk about the Bears, Bob. Because I think there was expectations there for the Bears this season. And the one player who's standing out is Romo Dunze. I mean, he has emerged as the top receiver there right now. He's leading the team in receiving routes run, targets. He has 3 receiving touchdowns on the season. Do you think that we've seen a shift here in the alpha in Chicago, or is this just the first 2 weeks of football and how these games have played out?
I feel like we have, right? Like I'm open to events convincing me otherwise. DJ Moore is still a very good player. He doesn't seem to be on the same page with Caleb Williams, right? I mean, there just seems to be a little bit
Yeah.
of a disconnect. But he does get some nice, some nice opportunities. Some of the plays, some of the routes he's running look like they could yield some big plays. But Rome Odunze is the volume play here, and that makes him the top fantasy asset to me. And look, I think Caleb Williams at some point, this is going to be a little bit of a process, right? To get him where they want him to be. They want him completing 70% of his passes. That was the goal coming into the season. They want him to be smarter getting rid of the ball and not take as many sacks. All these things it's a multi-level process, and it's going to be, it takes a while to get the ship turned around. I'll say this for Caleb Williams. We saw last year when they changed coordinators, some really high-level games from the switch from Shane Waldron to Thomas Brown, who I don't think, with all due respect to him, is viewed as the offensive mastermind that Ben Johnson is. So, like, I have a lot of hope over the long term, but I think it's going to be a battle going through. There's still too many misses on what should be easy throws, right? He doesn't make, seems like he doesn't make the easy throws. So they had too many turnovers. They're not running effectively yet, or as effectively as you'd like behind a rebuilt offensive line. Let's have this conversation again in November and see what we're thinking. I think it might be different then, but right now I think it's just going to be that inconsistency that we've seen so far. Good series and not so good series.
And that's all I was saying. Is like there's moments, right? Like there was moments in both games that he's played so
Yes.
far. Like there's moments and you're like, wow, like okay, that's why, he had that high draft capital. That's why he's regarded as, the top quarterback. But then you see the moments you're like, oh yeah, he's still learning, he's still growing. It's growing pains. Um, I- Ideally, you want to see it all come together. And look, Bob just literally penciled in a spot on the podcast in November, ladies and gentlemen. Right there, he said it here. All right, that's a verbal commitment there. Um, Bob, you mentioned Judkins a couple of times, right? And in his first, game, an NFL debut, he played in 19 of the 73 snaps. Within those 19 snaps, he had 13 opportunities. So they were not shy about using him when he was on the field.
Right.
How do you see this backfield shaping up? Because I had a lot of Dylan Sampson questions stuff, and my answer to everyone after week one was sell him as high as you can right now. You're not going to get 20 plus opportunities again. I know he got into the end zone, but he also played the fewest snaps of all the running backs in Cleveland last week. Where are you at with Judkins, Sampson, and then this backfield as a whole?
Well, the draft capital told you the story here, I think. And the fact that they were willing to throw him to the Lions after a single padded practice and a Friday walkthrough for a guy who had not been on the field with them since the first week of June. I mean, their actions tell you what they want. Also, they want to run the ball better, right? They need to take some of the pressure. They can't have Joe Flacco trying to be Superman every week. That doesn't work out well. I mean, he did for 5 games in 2023, but it's more up and down that they need. They need something more consistent. They need to hold on to the ball, extend drives. A strong rushing attack will do that. I think Quinshon Judkins is a guy they think will give him that. So this is an anticipated volume. He's not there yet, but I think he will be.
Yeah, after watching this weekend, because I'll be honest, I was very concerned like with Judkins because there was so much uncertainty with him that I kind of just wanted to avoid the situation. But I do think that they're going to lean on him. I truly do agree with you. I think they're going to lean on him. If you're going to be invested in any running back out of this backfield, it would be Judkins for me. Still not a backfield I'm overly optimistic about being invested in because I think once they make the shift at quarterback, it could get worse than it is right now. But again, if you're going to be invested, it would be Judkins. Speaking
It's
of
possible.
speaking of young running backs, I want to ask you, you could quick rapid fire about these two. Jaden Blue, Caleb Johnson. Caleb Johnson has played 4 snaps. Jaden Blue inactive for 2 games. These are players that were being drafted. And my quick thoughts on this is if you drafted these players, it wasn't with the intention of starting them right away. It was the intention
Right.
of just kind of letting it see how it plays out. And if you're thinking of cutting bait already, or if you're thinking of just moving on, then I don't think you were drafting them with the proper intention. I'm still holding these players. Now, granted, if you have shallow benches, or if you have, restrictions as far as how many, that's different. But in a 12-team league where you have 8, 9 rosters, bench spots, whatever the case may be, I'm still holding these players because I want to see it through. Because for me, it's not now, it's end of the season, like mid-season, end of the season, they're game changers for me. right? When bye weeks start piling up, when injuries start piling, all that stuff, maybe that's when I'm going to be able to utilize these players. Where do you stand with these two running backs?
That's exactly correct. I mean, like if you're on a if you drafted them with the hope that they would emerge quickly, that doesn't look like it's going to happen, and you need to churn your roster and make moves, and you have a short bench and no room, then move on from them. They're not going to help you anytime in the coming days. But if you have more time, I mean, like I use my usual Sesame Street analysis with Jaden Blue. One of these things is not like the other. He is not like the other backs there. He's fast and he's elusive. All due respect. I mean, look, Javonte Williams has been fantastic, right? But it's not like, yeah, and maybe a little faster and more elusive against the Giants than I expected. But nonetheless, he's not, that Jaden Blue level of athleticism. So at some point, when they get Jaden Blue in a correct path. We've all heard the chatter going back to Marcus Mosher's report, that maybe the coaching staff feels like he's not working hard enough, etc. There'll be time to get the ship turned around. But if you don't have that time on your fantasy roster or that space to let him do that, then yeah, move on from him. And I would say, yeah, I'd say the same in both cases. These are not going to be sudden risers.
Javonte Williams, man, off to a phenomenal start, huh?
Jesus.
I mean, it's
What is he running
incredible.
back three right now or something ridiculous?
The first week, 2 touchdowns in the goal line. All right, but
Well, and there was
last week,
there was he's the running back four. My bad. There was no Jalen Carter. Like I was
eh,
making all kinds. I was coming up with
correct.
all kinds of like, oh well, sure, but it was fortuitous opportunities, and Jalen Carter wasn't on the field, and then against the Giants, I'm like, well, it's the Giants. So like, but at some point you got to say, dang, Javonte Williams is doing all the Javonte Williams things that he didn't do in Denver.
He's doing exactly what we wanted him to do in Denver.
Right.
Let-
And the volume, the 80+% snap share, right? That's your key at a running back. There are not a lot of those guys that get that level of workload running around in the NFL. And when you get one, it's pretty valuable.
correct. And that, I think again, we go back to what we said at the beginning of the podcast, right? Opportunities are king. Like that's what it is.
Correct.
Let's wrap it up here with two young receivers. One's a rookie, one's in the second year. Troy Franklin and Alec Ayomaner. Ayomaner scored his first touchdown. He's been very involved in the offense in the first 2 weeks of the season. He's someone that towards the end of my drafting process, I was starting to target late in drafts. He started getting some buzz, and you kind of felt that he was going to be that number two. Um, Talk to me about Ayomaner, and then we'll shift to Troy Franklin here. But Ayomaner, any interest as look, when we talk about waivers, it's not necessarily you add them and you start them. I don't want to go out and maybe start Ayomaner right now, but I do think he's a good depth piece at the wide receiver position, Bob.
Yeah, like I would like to see this. I think one of the problems for him is when I'm out there drafting and I'm looking at offenses that I don't think are going to be high end offenses, I'm skimming at the top. And so I
Yeah,
still think Calvin Ridley's the top receiving asset there. I'm probably not digging, I probably wasn't digging deeper, but I do think he's in a position where he's going to have, obviously, he earned a contributing role. So he's going to be higher on the radar. He should be on your waiver wire watch list for sure. He is going to have a role. We started hearing that like during camp. So this isn't a sudden rise. It's been something that we've seen coming. Troy Franklin, I'm not telling I can tell you I didn't expect him to be wide receiver 14 well ahead of Cortland Sutton after 2 games. And like I think this could vary. Like I've talked to guys who cover the Denver Broncos on a daily basis, and this seems like it's going to be a fluid situation. Again, I mean, you want to dig a little deeper on good offenses. I think Denver's offense could end up being good, but when it's not like well defined, volume, like if it could be hit or miss. So I'm gonna be watching. Like I want to have Troy Franklin on the roster. I already have Marvin Mims. I invested some in him, like late, super late round flyers. So I want exposure to these guys. But I don't know. It's like, am I comfortable putting Troy Franklin in the lineup, expecting the kind of numbers he's produced? No, I'm not comfortable with that.
no, that's why I said at the beginning. Like none of these, like it's Ayomaner, Franklin. Yes, Adam. Nope, don't run and start them now
Yes.
this week. Like, don't chase the production. I will say, like, so he's lined up 60% of his routes run out of the slot. So he's operating as the primary slot receiver for Denver. Um, I and the thing is, Ingram dinged up. Ingram also runs a lot of his routes out of the slot. I believe that Franklin will continue to be that slot receiver, but 15 targets through 2 weeks. That's a lot.
Well, I
Like,
mean, he's got the connection, the
yes,
college
yes,
connection with Bo
yes.
Nix, which we
Yeah.
all were, was a thing last year, and we were sure it was a thing this year. He had a lot of growth to do. Clearly, he has done some of that growth, and so absolutely he should be on our radars. I think Marvin Mims should be on our radars too,
Yes.
based on his rise late last season, and we've seen moments. And I think Cortland Sutton needs to get get on the ball, young man. Let's go, Cortland Sutton.
He at least has one touchdown on this season, right? Like, it's okay. It's okay. It's 2 weeks, one touchdown. Give it. I do agree. We need to get Cortland Sutton going. We do definitely need him going. But if Franklin's out there, yeah, I think he's a waiver wire. Let's actually dive right into that, Bob. Let's talk some waiver wire recommendations, and we could rapid fire some of these. So like, let's talk quarterbacks. I think we've talked about Daniel Jones, Drake Maybe's out there. Are you adding any of these backups right now, like a Tyrod Taylor, Jake Browning? Like, are you adding any of these quarterbacks outside of, you know, two quarterbacks, super flex leagues?
Yeah, I'm adding Jake Browning if I had Joe Burrow. I mean, like you're going to be the only one probably chasing him,
Yeah.
unless it's a two quarterback league, right? Then everyone's chasing every possible thing. But in one quarterback league, while you're trying to figure this out, if I can't get a Daniel Jones and like I don't know, Browning was Browning was like a quarterback one over his starting time in 2023. I want to say I need to look it up. I think he might have been a quarterback 10 or top 10 in that range. So I wouldn't overlook him. I'm not out there chasing Carson Wentz or Tyrod Taylor though for sure.
No, I mean outside of super deep leagues or two quarterback leagues, I'm not going after these players. If you lost Burrow and you're looking for, a replacement like you mentioned, Browning, Daniel Jones still out there a lot. I know Trevor Lawrence is out there in some leagues as well. Like you can go with some of these guys, even Geno Smith. Like I prefer going in that direction versus Wentz, Tyrod Taylor, myself as well. When you look at the running back situation, any running back standing out this week as, ads. I think Tootin's going to be a very popular waiver wire addition.
Cam
Um,
Scatterboo.
Scadaboo's another one that's going to be very popular. Anyone else here that pops out at you?
Yeah, like if people have let go of Najee Harris, he's going to start having a more significant role as we go forward. I think Trey Benson has the third down role. It's still a committee, but he's good. But he's going to get some more additional to that third down role. So that's helpful. You're right on Tootin. I think he'll be a very popular one. He seems to be the fast riser of the group,
Yes.
although Scatterboo could be the starter. I mean, already got like the starter numbers or the volume against Dallas. I think he could just take this role over for the most part. It may end up being a committee all season long, but I just thought when they drafted him, he seemed like a guy who's an ideal fit for an offense where they don't block well.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's in play as well. Judkins is if he's available. We talked
Oh
about
yeah, for
him.
sure. I should have. Yeah, I wouldn't even think about him because he's like, and again, if people somehow overlook Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt or Jordan Mason, all
Correct.
those guys, go grab them.
Yeah, Trey Benson is another one that's out there in a lot of leagues, or not a lot, but in some leagues still. I feel like these kind of players, Mason, you mentioned Bill, Benson, all of them should be in just about 100% of the league's own because these are
That
players that,
yes,
these are players that either have a solidified role already or could carve out a massive role at some point this season. In deeper leagues, I think Blake Corum, I would add him here, just kind of a stash there, kind of see how that works
sure.
out behind Kyron Williams. Receivers, I got Waldo Robinson, Cedric Tillman, Ayo Maynor, Franklin. I think Romeo Dobbs still available in about
Hunter Renfro.
100. You get to do 100 Renfro, huh? You like that?
I think there's going to be a role there.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, there you go. I mean, I think that's, I think in PPR formats, he makes sense. We talked about Keyshawn Booty. He's someone that I agree with. Like he only had one target, but it was a good target. It was a touchdown this week. It
Yes,
was a
it's the
beautiful
best
catch. It was
target.
a beautiful catch, by the way. Um,
Keishon
so
Butte would like you to know that he probably should have been a first round draft pick, but circumstances have came up against him. So,
these are all receivers I'm adding, and I'm probably not going to start some of like I'll start Rondo
right,
Robinson in a PPR format. I'll be honest with
sure,
you. Do you
the
think that
volume's
that's here
there.
this day? The volume's there?
I don't know if as much volume as we saw against Dallas. I
No,
don't know if we're
not
going to
that
see that
much.
much offense from the Giants on a weekly basis, but he's definitely it's neighbors than him. There are going to be weeks where the pickings are very slim for him. I think for neighbors it's going to be all go all the time. So it'll depend on game script and how the quarterback is playing and how they're getting blocking and all those things. But yes, Wan'Dale Robinson I think has a legitimate role.
Yeah, I think so too. And then tight ends, Bob, we got Juwan Johnson. I got Conquel Strange. You have anyone else there that you've been looking to add this week?
Yeah, I don't want to get too fancy. I mean, I think Jatavian Sanders, if he's floating around out there, it looks like he's going to have a role as well. Look at me going for all the Carolina Panthers, but
I see what you're doing
those are the
here.
guys that are available. I don't think I think in waiver wires where Juwan Johnson escaped somehow unscathed last week and he's still sitting on your waiver wire, you should be out there grabbing him right away. And like maybe Zach Ertz is not highly rostered in your league or something, you should probably be rostered.
Yeah, Bryce Young, I guess since you're in on the Carolina Panthers, if he's available, are you adding him this week if you need a quarterback? If you're a Burrow, a
Quarterback
McCarthy?
six this week, the same place he finished over the final 7 games
Oh,
last year. No, I'm not banking on that, but if I'm in a two quarterback league, I have him in a lot of two quarterback leagues. So I'm hoping week 2 is more indicative of his progress than week 3, although week 2 was up and down. There was some bad Bryce and good Bryce.
You mentioned Juwan Johnson. If he went, if he went overlooked last week, I agree. If you're a Mark Andrews fantasy manager right now, are you cutting bait and swapping him with Juwan Johnson, or are you going to see this through, or are you rostering two tight ends? Something that I don't think you like to do very often, but are you rostering two tight ends until you see this through?
So I know I was having these same conversations about Mark Andrews this time last year. I think through the first 4 games, and he ended up scoring 11 touchdowns on the season. I'm probably not giving up on him yet, but like I'm not forcing him into lineups either. I'm looking for other options. Maybe even you, Harold Fannin Jr. So I think the thing about like a guy like Juwan Johnson and Fannin is at the moment they're kind of their team's de facto wide receiver 3. They're playing a little different role. They're getting a little different volume than most tight ends. So I'm fine with that. Like, I'll be interested to see what Green Bay does with Luke Musgrave too. It's not someone I'm out there looking to roster, but like with Jaden Reed out, are they going to go maybe 2 tight end sets, or maybe he can kind of play a glorified slot role as a tight end? So we'll see. I think it's better news for Savion Williams than it is for of that injury. I mean, and not that it's good news, but I mean, I think it's more beneficial to Savion Williams than to Luke Musgrave. But we did see some Musgrave, and it's easy to forget he was the way more highly touted of the rookies the year that he and Tucker Kraft came in, and Tucker Kraft is absolutely blown by him. Tucker Kraft is a monster, but Musgrave might get more opportunities.
Tucker Kraft looked amazing last game. Like, dude, he
Yeah,
was
he's a
getting,
monster.
yeah, he's a really good football player there. Bob, always appreciate your time. Always appreciate you coming on. Why don't you let everyone know you do so much? So I cannot list everything you do here, but you let everyone know what you got going. Yeah, I know you got the hot seat, you
I,
got your
I do
news,
two things, but I just do them a lot. You can find me at Football Guys. I have multiple articles every week. Also on the YouTube channel. Catch me Saturdays on my live stream. Ask Me Anything live stream, noon Eastern time on the Football Guys live channel. So check that out. Just sit around, have a chat. Catch me 7 days a week on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Saturday, 8 to 11. That's on NFL Radio and the Fantasy Channel. Then Sundays, me and the great Jeff Mans doing the pregame show from 11 to 1.
Yeah, make sure you guys are checking all of Bob's work out. Make sure you're following him on all his social media platforms, on his YouTube channel. Go give him a follow. Go watch the Hot Seats. Great show. Great guy, Bob. I know you're a busy man, so the fact that you're out here, I truly, truly appreciate it. I told you that before you jumped on. I tell you that again. And I'll send you a message after you hop on, and I'll remind you of how much I appreciate you being on here. I do truly appreciate it. You can find all of my work over at fantasyguru.com. You can follow me on the Twitter machine at Armando_Marsal, as well as on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Mind the Marsal. For the great Bob Harris, I am Armando Marsal. Hopefully you enjoyed this week's journey through the Mind of Marsal. Until next time.